In this demo, we're going to use layer masks and layer effects to build one of my weekend challenges. We're going to build something like this. I think I'm going to modify it a little bit, but we're going to build something kind of like that. So we're going to start off with the background image, just like this. And I'll bring in my fish JPEG, and I just drag that right into Photoshop. And Photoshop will want to place this as a smart object. And this is just fine right here. I'll go ahead and accept this. I'll press enter or press the little checkbox right up there. And let's get rid of some of that water there. I think probably the easiest tool to use in this case would be the magic wand tool. And in this particular example, even the default settings up here are going to get us really, really close. So I'll just click in the area up here in this water, and you can see that it got most of the water. It didn't get all of this down here. So I can either hold down the shift button to add to this selection, or I can click on this icon right up in the upper left hand corner, which will also add to the selection. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that. That looks pretty good. And for the purposes of the demo, I can see that there's some areas that I'm going to want to tweak, like right down here. I'm going to want to fix that. You can see right, there's a little tiny marching ant right here. I'm going to want to fix that as well, but it'll be a good part for the demo. So that's the part that we want to remove. We have selected the part we want to remove, the water in this case. So I'm going to go up here to Layer, Layer Mask, and hide the selection. We'll hide the water. And now on this layer, you can see that Photoshop has applied a layer mask. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the background layer here. And you can see a little bit easier that this area here, we're going to have to tweak. There's a little area over here, and there's some areas up here we need to fix. Probably the easiest way to do that would be to paint directly onto the layer mask. I want to make sure that the layer mask is selected. It has these little white lines around the outside of it, as opposed to, for example, this. If I were to start painting now, I would paint over my fish, and you can see that this layer is selected because it has these little white lines around it. So I'm going to make sure that this layer is selected with the little white lines around it. And I'll grab my brush tool, and I want to paint with black because black is going to remove areas. It's going to hide. So I want to make sure I have black selected, and I can just paint over those areas. And if I make a mistake and cut one of my fish in half, I can just do an undo. That's one of the great things about layer masks, is that they are a non-destructive edit. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my background layer here, and I can see I still have a lot of the lighter areas from the water still floating up here. So again, I make sure that I'm still on my layer mask, and I have black selected, which is going to hide areas, and I just scrub that out. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to move my fish over here. We can always move these later on. Right now I just kind of get them out of the way here. In fact, I can just turn off that layer. Let's bring in the moon. I'll go to my desktop and I drag over the moon, and Photoshop again wants to place this as a smart object. I'll go ahead and hit return to accept that. And a couple ways we could select the moon here. I could grab the elliptical marquee tool and put my cursor over what I think is the very center of the moon and start to drag, and then hold down the Option key. That's probably Alt on a Windows machine, and this will make my marquee start to drag from the center of the object. If I hold down the space button, if I hold down the shift button, then I will have a perfect circle drawn. Now the problem here is trying to get that marquee exactly over the moon. It's really challenging to do, so that's harder than it looks. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my selection, Command D, and I'm going to go back to the old magic wand tool. Select the sky, and then layer, layer mask, hide that. Right. I'll grab my move tool and put my moon, I think it was supposed to be right over here. And then I'll put some sort of a interesting looking color over that moon. And there's a couple of ways we could do this. Probably the easiest non-destructive way to do it is with a layer effect or a layer style. A couple ways that I can get in there. One way is to double click in this region on my layer. That'll bring up the layer style palette. Another way to do it is to go down into your layers palette and click on the add layer style button. Either way, it brings you into the same menu. I'm going to move this over here so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to go to color overlay. And I'm going to choose an orange. And I'm going to set its mode to multiply. And then I can take the opacity up or down to try to get different effects with this. I think that looks pretty good right there. I'll punch OK. And let's turn on our fish again. And we can position them. And that looks pretty good, but I find the one fish nose sticking out here a little bit distracting. So I'm just going to move it over so that it is not on the screen right about there. That looks pretty good there. There you go. That's pretty much it. Granted, I used a background for the fish that was kind of blue, and we're putting it onto a blue background, so that was kind of simplistic. But really, doing composites is about as simple as this.